Hey folks, I wanted to talk to you about the record that I made called Passion and Warfare that came out in 1990. And the thing that for me was so interesting when I look back at that record was I had gone through a lot before that as far as in my career. When I was 18, I started working for Frank Zappa, transcribing music, and then when I was 20, I joined his band and toured, and then I was in a band called Alcatraz. I replaced Yngwie Malmsteen, and then I was with David Lee Roth, and we had a wonderful run, sold millions of records, and then I was in a band called Whitesnake in the 80s, and all through those different incarnations, I really enjoyed all of it pretty much. You know, the music, I think I was authentic enough in those styles of music that it worked. One of the things that was so interesting to me when I look back now is when those opportunities came to me, they came to me. I actually didn't go out and look for them. And the reason why they came into my radar and into my career was because I had something that worked for those situations. And what I mean by that is, earlier in this video, I talked about how excited I was about playing the guitar when I was younger, and how the feeling of being able to not play something and then all of a sudden be able to play it was the payoff. That was always the payoff. As a result of that, there was skills that I developed that people were interested, and that's why Frank actually approached me, asked me if I wanted to be in his band. And to be perfectly honest, when the idea was first presented to me, it was a shock. I had to actually think about it in a way. Of course, I said yes. But as much as I loved Frank's music and I got to work with a true master, there was still in me a desire for a particular type of music that I was just formulating. Even I didn't even know what it was, you know. But I knew that I wanted to make music. I was writing music before I started playing the guitar. I was writing music. I loved writing music. So the opportunity with Frank was a wonderful opportunity. I loved it. I felt like I did a decent job at playing the master's music on the guitar. Especially the stuff he wrote. But there was always this kind of like thing that said, well, one day you're going to do your own music. And then when the opportunity with Alcatraz came, whoever was going to stand in that position was immediately going to get recognition because Yngwie Malmsteen had just blown up. And I thought it would be a good opportunity. And I did that and enjoyed that very much. We made a great record called Disturbing the Peace. Then the gig with David Lee Roth came, and Dave was with Van Halen, and obviously the voice in front of the guitar, Edwards guitar, you know, that combination there had a formula and a chemistry to it. And it was a gig that I knew I wanted. And the odd thing is the moment I heard about it, there was this thing in me that said, well, that's your gig, you got it. I don't know why, but I just knew. And they came to me and asked me. And then with Whitesnake, it was the same thing. I liked that music, but they came to me. And it was only because I had something that worked for them. So the reason I'm even saying this is because you may have something that works for somebody that feels good to you. It usually doesn't work when you try to do something that's not you, that you're fabricating for a gig or to please somebody else. It's okay to just not do it, you know. You'll usually be much more successful at the things, and happy at the things that you don't have to work at really hard. When I say work, of course you have to work, but you don't have to go outside of your comfort zone. So these things were exciting to me. Still, someplace in me, there was always, yeah, but I'm going to do this. And I actually started working on Passion and Warfare after my stint with Frank. Well, no, after Frank I did Flexible. But then right before I joined Dave's band, Passion and Warfare was in a stage. I had a deal for it, had to put it on the shelf. Year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And with Whitesnake, I had same thing. Until finally, push came to shove, and I was just compelled to do this record, and it didn't matter what was at stake. So this was a situation, and you may have been confronted with something like this in your life, where you've done things for other people for so long, you hit the wall, and you realize, I got to do something that my creativity is demanding I do. And obviously this reaching out to do things to make yourself happy outside of music while taking care of somebody else or being in a situation where you have responsibilities, of course it's a different story. But creatively in the music, in your music career, you may come across a time when the desire is so strong to do something that is compelling to you that you just have to do it, even if the stakes seem very high. And at the time, for me, I felt it didn't matter. I had been through the whole rock star thing, loved it, got a lot out of it. Touring in the 80s was a blast. Don't regret one bit of it. But when I turned my back on it all and decided to make this record, Passion and Warfare, I kind of thought this was the end of my career. Nobody's going to get this record. Nobody's going to understand it. And it's almost seemed a shame to throw away an entire career just because I wanted to do this weird music. But there comes a point where you're just so compelled. Your desire to hear the music that you're hearing in your head, your desire to create it, eclipses practicality. It trumps insecurities. That's beautiful when that happens, because then you don't care. You just do it. And that's the way I felt, and I enjoyed every moment of it. And it was music I had kicking around. It was ideas that I had. It was some things that I wanted to do that didn't sound like anything I had really heard before or anything that I ever did. What I really wanted to do most of all was to raise my own bar. And the reason why I'm even mentioning all this, because it doesn't mean anything to me really to brag about it that I made this record, but in hopes that it can encourage you, because when I look back, these are the thought patterns that I had, and if you can find them in yourself, you may really find that satisfaction in creating the music that's important to you. Now, it's also quite possible that you don't write music and you don't care to write music. There's nothing wrong with that either. Great musicians do not necessarily write music. They're great at playing it. Most classical musicians have no desire to compose. They just want to play the composer's music as best they can. And most great composers are not necessarily great instrumentalists. So whatever it is, it's okay. And it's important for you to come to grips with that and not feel that you need to be something that doesn't feel natural to you, because that's where all the trouble starts. But if you chill out on it all, what you really want will rise to the top of your radar. And then when you cultivate it, you'll just do it. And that's what happened with me with Passion and Warfare. And it was funny because I remember when the record was done, I thought, okay, there it is. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I sent it to the record company, and they just scratched their head and said, we have no idea what this music is. We're just going to tell you now, we're not going to promote it. We're not going to give you all the money we told you that we were going to give you. And they thought I was one of these artists that would accept that. And that's another lesson I can teach you here. Your worst enemy is desperation. You don't need it. You never need to be desperate. Never. Because if you have the goods, it works. Desperate leads to bad decisions. And there was one thing I had in my corner. If I could look back at all of that, I never felt desperate. So if a label that I was signed to said, well, thank you for this record, we don't really like it, we're just going to put it out, we're not putting any promotion behind it, instead of giving you X, we're going to give you Y, and that's the way it is. And most artists would say, oh, you suck, okay. You know, and I just say, okay, fine, give me my record back. And I found a label, Relativity, that liked it, got it, understood it, had the right people. And still, when the record came out, I thought nobody's going to get it, but the attitude of the other label just didn't seem healthy. And it was quite a shock to me when it went gold in its first week of release and shot up to number 18 in the Billboard charts. It was a shock. Matter of fact, I remember walking into I was in Toronto at the time. I think I was on tour. I forget, I was probably on tour. And I was going to this radio station, and I go into the radio station, and I'm in the lobby, and some guy comes up to me. And this was a week after Passion and Warfare was released. And he said, hey, congratulations. I heard your record is 18 with a bullet and is certified gold. I thought he was talking about somebody else, and I didn't want to discourage him, so I said, oh, yeah, thank you, thanks, cool. I thought he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I go up to the radio station, and I'm sitting, and I'm on the air, and the guy says to me, so, congratulations, I hear your record. I see that your record is certified gold and is 18 with a bullet. And that's when I discovered that it was true. And I couldn't understand it, but I was very happy about it. You have to please yourself first. You really have to deeply please your own creative instincts, your creative instincts first. And then the audience when you do that, there's a sincerity that flows into the work you do. There's an excitement. There's a deepness that's beyond the technique. There's this wonderful feeling of creative joy and accomplishment and just gratitude, appreciation. That flows into your music. And it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. There's no rules. It could be death metal or, classical music, whatever it is. When you feel like you did what you felt, and it might not even be just you. It could be with a group of people. It could be a chemistry that you discovered with a bunch of people. It could be as a producer or just as a songwriter. But when you feel like you did what you wanted to do, independent of anything else, that's a really good feeling. That's the payoff. And then what the miracle that happens is the people that are attracted to it are the right audience for you. They're the best audience for you. Maybe a big audience, maybe a small audience. But if you pursue a large audience and attempt to do something outside of your comfort zone because you believe that that's what's going to make it for you, you will inevitably be competing against people whose comfort zone is what you're competing against outside of your own comfort zone. And you'll be cutting yourself short of your own potential, and that's a shame. So ultimately, I believe what you'll find will work best is when you're following your muse, when you're identifying with what it is that you really like, your inner voice in music, whether it's songwriting or performance, and you just throw yourself into that without any excuses, without the concerns of genres or anything like that. And it's quite possible that you'll discover that that's the most deeply rewarding way to create music and have a musical career.